In November 2003, Manadel al-Jamadi was captured by Navy SEALs just outside Baghdad. He was suspected of involvement in Iraq's insurgency. Several hours later, al-Jamadi died while under interrogation by the CIA. Photographs of grinning GIs crouched over his iced-down, battered corpse were among the horrific images that emerged during the Abu Ghraib prisoner abuse scandal, images that were seen around the world and have become potent symbols for those opposed to the American invasion of Iraq. A military autopsy ruled al-Jamadi's death a homicide, but no one has been held accountable for his death.
What you're about to hear are the details of the final hours of Manadel al-Jamadi's life. NPR has spent several months reviewing thousands of CIA and military documents. We have interviewed people who were on the scene during those final hours. You'll hear about the techniques used to extract information from the prisoner, and you'll hear how military police and the CIA interrogators differ in their descriptions of just what happened before al-Jamadi died. NPR's John McChesney has our story.
The assignment was clear: kill or capture Manadel al-Jamadi. So on November 4, 2003, at 2 o'clock in the morning, a convoy of Humvees and a couple of blacked-out CIA Chevy Suburbans glide along a deserted street in a hostile Baghdad suburb. The Humvees stop in front of a three-story apartment building. A platoon of Navy SEALs tumbles out of the Humvees and races up the stairs. Dan Cirillo, a 5'7", 230-pound SEAL nicknamed Taco, places a charge on the apartment. But as he's doing so, the door begins to open. Cirillo rushes the man behind the door. On May 11, 2004, Cirillo gave CIA investigators his account of that takedown. That interview report, along with thousands of other documents, has not been made public. Here, an actor reads verbatim from the document.
Cirillo saw that al-Jamadi filled the entire doorway.
Cirillo says al-Jamadi was over 6 feet tall. As he enters the apartment, he sees that the door has struck al-Jamadi.
Cirillo hit him in the face with 2 fists and attempted to wrestle the subject to the ground, but al-Jamadi resisted, and they engaged in hand-to-hand combat. They entered the kitchen and crashed over a small card table that collapsed. He and al-Jamadi fell to the floor, side by side, and he attempted to get on top of al-Jamadi. According to Cirillo, al-Jamadi fought him and pushed his head back with a hand under Cirillo's chin. Cirillo says he was throwing hard punches, haymakers, and was attempting to draw his sidearm, but couldn't.
Cirillo says he grabbed the stove in front of him to pull himself upright, but instead the stove tipped forward and hit al-Jamadi on the head and upper chest. Cirillo is then able to get on top of al-Jamadi and bind his wrists with flex cuffs. The Iraqi's wife and children are watching all of this, and he asks Cirillo not to beat him in front of his children. Al-Jamadi now has about 5.5 hours to live.
He was considered a key cell leader for one of the terrorist cells.
Lawyer Frank Spinner got involved with this case while defending Lieutenant Andrew Ledford, the leader of the Navy SEAL platoon that captured al-Jamadi. Ledford was court-martialed and later acquitted for allowing his men to beat al-Jamadi. According to Spinner, the CIA considered al-Jamadi to be a very bad guy.
He appeared to have worked for Saddam Hussein as an officer in their army. He also was suspected of having either possession of or knowledge of the location of an extensive amount of explosives.
CIA investigative documents reviewed by NPR allege that al-Jamadi was teaching a number of insurgency groups how to use mortars, and that he possessed 2 tons of high explosives he was parceling out to those groups. The CIA also suspected he'd been involved in the attack on the Al-Rashid Hotel when Deputy Secretary of Defense Paul Wolfowitz was visiting 8 days earlier. Insurgent or not, according to Spinner, al-Jamadi apparently didn't go gently into the night with the SEALs.
Many witnesses testified, including CIA agents, that al-Jamadi put up the biggest struggle of any terrorist that they had captured up to that point, and I think even subsequent to that.
Documents reviewed by NPR are filled with precise details from eyewitnesses about what happened next. It's now about 2:15 in the morning. When al-Jamadi's hood is lifted for identification, several people remember that he had a black eye and a cut below it, and there's blood on his hood. 2 SEALs then flip al-Jamadi heels overhead onto the floor of a Humvee. A CIA security agent riding shotgun in a Suburban that night provides this account for investigators from the CIA's Office of Inspector General.
The SEALs picked al-Jamadi up and tossed him into the back of the Humvee like a bag of potatoes. "Did you see that? Did you see that?" the agent recalled saying to the others. 2 SEALs then plopped down on him. The agent demonstrated the action, indicating the SEALs physically sat on top of the detainees.
As we'll learn later, these early physical details are important because the autopsy says al-Jamadi had 5 broken ribs, an injury that may have contributed to his death. With the Iraqi on board, the convoy then drives to a nearby army base for a debriefing. During the 20 minutes they're there, the SEALs punch, kick, and strike him with their rifle muzzles as al-Jamadi continues to talk in Arabic to the other detainee on the Humvee floor beside him. Frank Spinner recounts testimony given at the SEALs court-martial. Remember, Spinner is the lawyer who defended the SEALs platoon leader.
None of them acknowledged hitting al-Jamadi with sufficient force to cause any significant injury whatsoever. In fact, at trial, the government said that the prosecutors said that they were not claiming that any of the force applied by the SEALs to al-Jamadi's body was sufficient to cause any significant injury.
But the beating there did cause significant injury to the professional lives of several SEALs who were punished for their part in it. Nobody went to jail, but several SEAL careers were wrecked, and some bitter members of the SEAL team feel they've paid the price for the CIA, in whose custody al-Jamadi later died. From the Army base, the convoy then proceeds to the SEALs base, known as Camp Jenny Posey. It's close to 3 a.m. now. There, al-Jamadi is led into an interrogation area sardonically referred to as the romper room. On the way in, a CIA escort says al-Jamadi goes limp as though he's passed out. This is where the CIA interrogation begins. Nearly every witness interviewed by investigators agrees that al-Jamadi is seated, stripped, and cold water is poured over him as he's bombarded with questions and threats. An actor reads what one of the CIA security guards told agency investigators.
The interrogator was in al-Jamadi's face yelling, "I'm going to barbecue you if you don't tell me the information." He stated that in the interrogation room there was a hangman's noose made of dark-colored, half-inch rope suspended from the ceiling. The interrogator said he was unaware of the rope's purpose.